Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast. Today, you guys are up for a treat. We have Teresa, who is a award-winning author and motivational speaker. She helps parents and kids on resulting reduce violence by acts of kindness. And are you ready to change the world one act of kindness at a time? This episode is going to change the way that you see how the brain works and the potential that exists when we have the right mindset. So welcome, Teresa. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great, and thank you so much for having me.
What is the weather like? Where are you at located right now?
I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, and right now it's hot and humid. It is not
Hot and
pleasant.
humid. Yeah, it sounds kind of like Omaha, honestly. It's pretty hot and humid over here, but hey, that's the summer and I'm very happy for it. Can you start us with your story because I know that it's very powerful. I know you have a few of them. You have like story after story, but what motivated you to start paying attention to kindness? What does that mind shift? Because I know that you have a corporate profession, a career, and then you just
hmm
made that switch recently. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it actually happened in 2018, or it started, we'll say that, in 2018 with a school shooting. And no, I didn't know anybody involved, but it was just, God stepping up and saying, we can do better. And so I went to the kids and I grieved and sympathized. And I said, but you can make that difference. You don't have to wait. Because I know that particular one, they were really pushing to change laws. They wanted to push the school policy changes, and it was taking, they were just spinning their wheels. So I said, but how you treat each other makes a huge, huge difference. And that's how I got started. And then COVID hit. And unfortunately, we all landed in front of our computers. But what I then found was adult and how they treated each other online, and how I was actually horrified. I'll just be honest, because I didn't know people really spoke that way and meant it. And it was just menacing. So I thought, I need to get to the parents, because you can tell the kids all you want to in school, but you as a parent are the CEO, the role model. And that's what your kid is really looking at. Whether you believe it or not, it's true.
It sounds like you recognize the fact that the environment will trump any interpersonal change, right? In the case of you working with the kids, if their environment is not supporting that change, that growth, then it's not going to stick around for too long, right?
Mhm.
Can you tell me how that came to awareness? Like, meaning you saw the internet and you saw how the parents were talking to each other, you
Yeah.
saw that environment, but what was a realization point that is like, I mean, if I don't go here, I'm not going to have a result perhaps?
Yeah. Well, the first realization was that yes, kids are reading your social media. If for no other, and I did ask some kids and they said, oh yeah, because we don't want them posting about us. And we get upset when they do that. And I said, okay, so you're reading it. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're posting all this negative stuff, you as the parent, as the role model, your child is going to say, oh, if it's okay for them, then it's okay for me. And that's where I'm like, no, we need to do better. And I
Hmm.
did do some research. I started doing more and more research about kindness, and found the most fascinating thing, which dovetails nicely into our conversation, is that if you and I exchange an act of kindness, our serotonin levels go up, our happy hormones, in other words. And so now we got two happy people, but anyone that witnessed that act of kindness, their serotonin levels also go up. So from one little act of kindness, we have got a room full of happy people. So it is that ripple effect that we have talked about. And, my goal is, if we're all doing little acts of kindness in our own corner of the world, raising those happy hormones, then we're going to merge together. Those ripples are going to eventually merge and make a wave of kindness that washes across country and around the world.
As you're talking about neurochemicals, I can't stop from thinking we can really take this very deep. Like, we can go neurochemical by neurochemical and see how kindness affects that neurochemical. For example, I was just thinking, like, if you get an act of kindness today, you witness it, whether you were the creator, the receiver, or the witness, you kind of start expecting that the next day. And that is dopamine, right? It's like the excitement before it even happens, which again, dopamine is one of those necessary neurotransmitters and hormones we need every single day. day. Now, compare that to the reverse, which is a negative act, not very kind.
Mhm.
That will actually release stress before you even get to school the next day. So it's like you get to expect those things. And when we can revert it and look at it from a positive perspective, that is actually what I'm so impressed by when we look at, okay, it's not just kindness, it's kindness, but all the ripple effects that come with it. It's not just serotonin, it is oxytocin, like people actually caring for each other, gaining appreciation and becoming closer and looking forward to see that person. And when they see them, they perhaps will hug next time.
Mhm.
Can you tell me about a few ripple effects that you have seen throughout your community? And I know that you have a few stories very close home, and I want to hear about it.
Well, okay. I have a lot of them, but I want to start out with one that's very simple because people are like, well, I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. And it starts with a smile and a hello. It's that simple. And I had a friend, he retired, but then got bored. And a friend of his had owned a parking garage. So he went to work there and he took a couple weeks of vacation off. When he returned from vacation, his regular customers said, where have you been? I have had the worst 2 weeks of my life. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, your good morning and your smile sets my day off on the right tone. And I always have a good day because I got to see that smile first. And he's just like, and then he came to me. It was so cute. You kindness lady. He said, you always told me it was simple. He said, but I never realized it until I got that validation. So it starts out really simple. And yes, everybody can do it.
Wow. I just had that realization showing up to the office recently, having my friends say that, like, I feel that I'm feeling better. Like I'm excited to come to the office and share the space with people that I appreciate that are, doing good out there. So kindness can be just being yourself as well and being respectful of others and caring for them. I think people feel that. And I think that's what kindness is, right? It's perhaps not even just the action, but the intention behind it, like the feeling that you show that you care for others. Can you tell me about something that hit home for you, perhaps in your family, perhaps with significant others that resembles that?
Yeah, I can tell you about the one for me because it was early on when I was researching the kindness. I had gone to lunch with a friend and the restaurant was busy and the server came up and said, what do you want? And we're like, well, we got a couple questions about the menu. I don't know. I was told to come over and take your order. What do you want? And my friend and I just looked at each other going, oh, this is not good. But she took our order. We got everything. It was fine. I don't think she came over and refilled a coffee or a water or anything. And at the end of the meal, she came over and slammed the bill on the table. My friend and I just kind of both sat back and go, wow. And in that moment, and we had this conversation, we had every right to call the manager. I have never had anybody that rude before or since. And so we sat there, we actually kind of talked it out. And I said, let's do something else. We're not going to call the manager on. We went ahead and paid the bill, left a normal tip, but on her receipt, I wrote a smiley face and you are designed to shine. And then we just gathered our stuff up, walked on out the door. She chased us into the parking lot. Thank you. I really needed to hear that today. And she turned around and ran back in. But we get in the car and we're like, we didn't know what to expect when we did that, but we never saw that coming. We never saw that we totally turned somebody's day around. And of course we laugh. We've saved some future customers from having the same experience we did. But yeah, that was probably the first time I was like, wow, there's a lot more. There is a lot to this. And
So,
all I did was
so
write a note.
yeah, so what you're mentioning is so powerful because we often act from a cause, meaning something causes us to feel something and then we behave in a certain way. And when we're trying to reprogram the way that we behave, the way that we think, the way that perhaps not we feel, but how we react to that feeling from a conscious perspective, to be able to do it by choice is what you just resemble. You make a choice and you become aware and you say, no matter what the day looks like, I'm going to be kind. And guess what happens? You have the perfect opportunity to show up kindness to the person that needs it the most, which is that somebody has a bad day. Normally, they will get more of that negative response back. But you say, no, wait a minute. Like, she's truly making me feel uncomfortable, not appreciated. But instead of just react, I'm going to choose. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to surrender to it, and I'm going to choose to act with kindness. And again, the highlight word here that I find is kindness, but also is choice. Like you are
Hmm. Yeah.
choosing how you're going to react no matter what the environment, the situation brings to you, whether it's through a person, whether it's through an environment, a season, whether it's through the rain, or whether it is to the AC going off in the middle of the summer, whatever it is, we have that choice. And what I want to highlight is that the story starts with the environment. A person is creating a feeling in you. And the reason I highlight that is because that's the work that I do, is that it is the environment, it's the person within the environment that starts the whole story. But the reason the story is so powerful and impactful and meaningful is because you choose how to react. If you would just have exploded, we wouldn't be talking about this now.
Yeah.
It's the choice that gave the powerful meaning to it. So, with that being said, I want to transition into knowing a little bit about your story, because my understanding is that before 2018, you were in the corporate work, but now you choose to have
Yeah.
this kindness project. But still, I want to go into the seasons, right? Like, how
Hmm.
does the year looks for you? Have you noticed of certain patterns? And have you noticed how the seasons and the environment affects you based on the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, I have. And like I said, that example was one that just came early on. But, even I just noticed I don't run into those situations as often as I used to. I was somewhere in a store earlier today, and the lady's just smiling, and she's like, "Oh, you're always so happy when you come in here." And I said, "That's because life is good." How many people get to say, "My job is spreading kindness. This is what I
Mm.
do." I get up in the morning, and it's intentional. It's always intentional. And I encourage everybody to be intentional. And, I go in, the dog and I walking on the trail. We say good morning to everybody. The sad thing is some people look startled, like no one says anything to them all day, which makes me sad. But you notice things. You notice the opportunity. I know I was at a volleyball game, and someone was trying to walk up the bleachers, an older woman, and she was very unstable. She goes, "I need to get up higher. I want to see my grandson." And no one was paying attention to her. I was. And all I did was hold out my arm. And that made everything better for her. But it's just when you are intentional and it gets better, it becomes a lifestyle. And this is my life's work. But it's just you go through your day and you look for opportunities, or the opportunities present themselves. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you can comment on that.
yeah, that just makes me reflect on my own life and the work that I do with the seasons. But it comes to a fundamental truth, which is what we focus on expands, which is that if we're focusing on looking for opportunities for kindness, we're going to find them. If we're actually being kind, kind is going to find us back as well. So it all works for our good, no matter which part we get, the person that needed the kindness or the kindness or way. Like it all works for the good of what we're creating, which is in your case kindness every single day. And for me, I look at the seasons and I look at the environment, and I'm always trying to see what the environment is presenting to me so I can grow from it. And I understand, okay, as the environment shifts, there's going to be new feelings that are going to come in me. So if something comes in me that doesn't feel right, my job is to dig into it and find out what memory is coming to light because of that environment. And when I can link the two together, voila, awareness lights up. And then I can go through the process of repairing that previous memory and choosing, again, going back to choosing what do I want to create in this kind of environment that is not subconscious anymore, is actual consciousness. And that's the best example what you have described, which is that you wake up every day with that intention, and that's what you get and that's what you give. So it's just the power of our minds into creating the reality that we choose, not the one that comes our way. Maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, because I was just having a conversation with somebody else, and she said she had talked to somebody, and they're like they said their life there always seems to be a problem. Whenever I go anywhere, whenever I do anything, there's always a problem. And my friend said, "Well, gosh, I have the exact opposite experience." And I said, "Well, when she enters a situation, what is she looking for? Is she looking for those the trouble and the issues that might come up? Or is she looking for the road to be smooth and ready to go? And that's what I think. What are you looking for when you walk out your door, or even
You
in
know,
your house? When you get up in the morning, are you intentionally saying, I'm going to have that kind, great day? Or you're saying, oh gosh, it's another day. I got to get up and go to work.
two things come to mind. Number one, the winter socks. Like how many times you hear that, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna go too deep in there, but I do wanna explore that further down the road. And the same with the summer. Oh my gosh, it's so hot and humid. Like it has become such a second nature way to say hi. How are
Hmm.
you? Oh, the weather sucks, right? It's small talk, but it has a very powerful influence in our psyche. And I wanna
Right.
leave that for later because what really came to mind as you are expressing, it all starts when you decide how you're gonna show up as soon as you open that door or even inside your house. And the first thing that came to mind was role models, parents. And the
Hmm.
second thing that came to mind is that we are like 95% of who we were by the age of 6. Like all those memories that we have subconsciously stored that are full of emotion came from our parents for the most part. And when you're talking about parents being role models, I want to go into how you actually help parents become role models of kindness in this world. Because I think that's the key, and you identify that immediately. And
Hmm.
that is the explanation of why it's better to go after the parent than the child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you, I had a 7-year-old talk about, the first 6 years, and he came up to me and said, you keep doing that kindness thing. That's good stuff. It's like, okay. So his parents are doing a good job. But what I try to teach parents is you start with intentionally setting what values you want to instill in your kid. What philosophies do you want to live by? And then live by that. So you build that foundation of kindness intentionally, and you have to be intentional, because a lot of people will say, well, I did this, I pay for the coffee for the person behind me, or I said those are sporadic. It's not intentional. They're all good things. I'm not saying that, but be more intentional. And then it's going to be, I see opportunities to be kind. And that's what you have to model for your kids. And then when you're not looking, your sixth grader sees the kid in the cafeteria in the wheelchair. He can't push the wheelchair and carry the lunch tray. So your sixth grader goes over and, here, let me help you. And where do you want to sit? And the kid's shrugging. Come sit with us. Well, the sixth grader is an athlete, and all his friends at his table are athletes. The kid in the wheelchair, he knows every sports statistic there is out there. And then you've built a beautiful friendship, and you have parents built that foundation. And look what's happening when you're not looking.
You
That's
know,
what
I
you
can't
have.
I can't wait to think about the synchronicity that you just mentioned. Like what are the chances that the only child that or kid at his age that realized that there is somebody in need is the one that has been exposed to it because of the work that you're doing with the parents and is the one that takes action, shows kindness. And again, what is the synchronicity? It keeps going farther, right? The kid
Right.
actually is a stat genius now with the athletes, and then just talking about something they will normally don't talk about and realizing the similarities within them and what is the synchronicity of that all happening. I think the one thing is that it happens subconsciously,
Hmm.
meaning it all starts as the child is just in their house noticing or getting used to, or in a way getting trained to be able to recognize that pattern and being out there being kind. So sometimes we can be as intentional as we want, but most of our mind, 95% of our mind, is working subconsciously on the background. Like we don't even realize it's triggering emotions, it's like reading the environment. And since we are not looking for those environmental cues, we don't see the kid on the wheelchair with the tray of food. But when it's in your subconsciously actually is drawn towards those parts of the environment that will trigger the feeling, oh, there is somebody in need. I can show up. So again, becoming aware at a subconscious level at a young age is such a big influence. And as I do my work, I also hope that as I influence the parents, then they influence their kids and change the way that they look at the environment and they create good habits that are in alignment with their environment so that they can be in alignment with their circadian natural rhythms. And the list goes on and on. So going back to the work with the parents, and the weather sucks, and whether it's the
Mhm.
summer, whether it's the winter, like your friend that always looks for something to complain, that I always see problems, is literally one turn away. It's like training ourselves to look for opportunities instead of problems. And I know that you have a lot to look in that, because if you are the kindness lady, you have trained your brain and you train others to look for opportunities where most see challenges. Is that right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I tell you another story that was challenging. I will be honest. I and because road rage is huge. I don't know. Maybe you can explain what happens to our brains when we get behind the wheel of a car, because
Yeah, I can
we are
tell
not
you.
the
Yeah.
same person.
Yeah, I
And
can tell you. Yeah.
well, as a parent, you've got the future driver sitting next to you. So what you say and do in your car is very important. But I had an instance where I was getting off at an exit ramp, and the guy in front of me gets out of his car, because we're stopping at a red light now, gets out of his car, and he's yelling at me and coming. Now, I haven't got the slightest clue what I did, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble. And I had this in my car, so what I did was put it on and just wait, and he couldn't have stopped fast enough. And I, to this day, wonder what he said when he got to his destination about the lady with the red clown nose. And so,
Wow.
using humor, whether it
Yeah.
be props or one-liners, is a great tool to teach your kids on how to be
Using
kind
humor.
and how
Okay.
to respond in a kindly manner in those sticky, scary situations.
I mean, think about it. Like, humor completely changes the perception. Like, if
Mhm.
I feel like if I'm teaching my kid in a very technical manner, he's just gonna get bored.
Right,
Sometimes,
right.
sure, they can probably be paying attention. Sometimes they won't. Most of the time, they will catch, even if they're not paying attention. But I think when you bring humor to the equation, I think they right away start paying attention, and they
Hmm.
enjoy whatever it is that you're telling them. So that's a good one, and I just wanted to highlight it because it can probably go a little dismissed, but it is a good way to change and to attract the child and to get their attention. Now,
Yes, I
you
always
know
say
the
watch the sarcasm. That's not always good.
Okay, just be funny but direct. So the road rage, the road rage, the way that I see it, and I want to highlight that because it has a lot to do with kindness, is that we are on and off. And in today's environment, a lot of people are always on. On what? We're on and off in our parasympathetic and our sympathetic systems. And we are always on. That means we have cortisol in us. That means that we are attentive, which is nothing wrong
Mm-mm.
unless you put in the word always on front of it. Being on is just a natural way. We wake up, we see the light, biologically we react to it, we produce cortisol, stress, we're alert. The issue is when it becomes chronic and we don't switch back to that rest phase. Now, there's many reasons why it happens, from like lighting contamination to sensory overwhelm to stress at work, at life. Like, it just gets to a point that people nowadays are on the edge. The reason that I bring this up is because when it comes down to kindness, I don't think that you can do it from that on chronic stress, because when you're in that state, you're actually trying to survive and
Hmm.
you are just looking for danger in the environment so that you can avoid it. If somebody else is getting the danger, well, that's their problem. I just want to survive. But when you are in a relaxed state, when you are breathing normally, when you have a good balance between being attentive, but at the same time being able to get out of that chronic stress and rest and get on and off, follow your natural rhythms, which we call the ultradian rhythm, is the one that actually keeps that going naturally within our bodies. Now you can act in kindness. And that's what I want to bring up, because when you're working with the parents, have you noticed that like financial stress, and that's kind of the kids that at school are also not manifesting that kindness, because I do think that they are in a relationship. They have to be.
No, I totally agree. And that's where, because and it is the world we live in, there's always kind of an undercurrent of stress for any number of reasons. So, in order to build that foundation of kindness, one of the tools is to practice a pause so that, okay, the boss is yelling at you, the neighbor's yelling, whatever the case is, instead of doing that automatic yell back,
Mhm.
step back and take a deep breath and let it out. And I know you had the balloon. I have bubbles because you can teach your kids to do this, and they're going to practice it. And I use blowing bubbles because you have to take a deep breath and blow, and it's fun for kids. So that's a tool. And if you're practicing with your kids, you're going to get that, and it's going to make it as natural as breathing. And that's what you really want, because once you build that foundation, everything else is going to be smoother, easier to be kind in. But you got to pause first, because if you don't, it just keeps that cycle going. And do you resolve anything when that cycle's running? No, you just get angrier and the stress gets more. The anger gets
Mhm.
bigger. You end up not talking to people that, your best friend for 30 years, you're not talking to them now. It just doesn't make any sense. So again, it goes back to your question: what's more important, to be right or to be kind? And 9 times out of 10, you're arguing over something ridiculous, like, who's going to cut the grass this week, or you parked this much into my spot, whatever the case is.
So I want to take the opportunity to break that down because you're mentioning presence, you're mentioning pause, which I believe they come together. So we don't control whatever comes our way to a certain degree unless we're making bad choices, we're putting ourselves in bad environments. But even if we are just driving on the highway, they can be somebody getting out of their car and yelling at us. Even if we go to a restaurant, they can be a waitress giving us a face and saying that, something that is not nice. Like, we don't control the environment. So if we remove the expectation and we just focus on what we can control, which is our reaction, we can face that environment with awareness. And then what we don't also control is our feeling. Because I know that when that guy got out of his car, you got afraid. I know that when the waitress, did what she did, you felt bad, whether you felt, I don't know, sadness or awkwardness, or, you didn't feel good. Like, nobody can control that first reaction. And then it's just matter of acknowledging that, because we do have to train ourselves to acknowledge that that's out of our control. What is in our control is what happens next, which is what you are saying, which is the pause, to become present, to create presence, to create space, to digest whatever is happening, so that then we can go through the process of creating a choice. There's a few steps in between, but I wanted to bring that up. Like, that's where the presence exists, is after whatever happens. You don't control that. It's just the pause. So it's becoming on the habit, like creating the habit of taking that deep breath. In your case, you're saying to the kids, blow bubbles. And I think there is no coincidence that we're both talking about breathing and blowing. Because when we breathe, that can be kind of conscious, but usually we don't usually consciously exhale. And I think when you blow bubbles, that is that feeling of consciously exhaling, which is the same that you do when you blow a balloon. So the breathing and the exhaling can give you that pause. And again, I don't know if you want to go into meditation and kind of visualizing what happens there. I don't really want to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but it is like the beginning of that. Like,
Yeah.
to be able to take that pause and create that space and becoming present. So I absolutely love that you teach kids to blow a bubble. Now,
Yeah.
after,
I was just going to say, yeah, it just, when you do that, it just takes that stress level down for yourself, because you can't control the other person, but you control how you respond to them.
so there is two things that I can see kind of together. One is very obvious, which is emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Developing that. I would like to know how you're implementing that towards your project. And then gratitude. I know that gratitude is a very powerful feeling. So I want you to talk about those two, because I do know that they come basically in bunches, but they are like part of the same process of becoming kind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gratitude is also a way, when you're looking at everything negatively, gives you that power to say, oh, wow, yeah, that was a good thing that happened. It switches your focus, helps you switch that focus. So, yeah, that's one of the things with parents I recommend at the end of the day, because I think that's the best time, is to sit with your child and say, okay, let's list some of the good things that happened to you today. And you sit there and make the list together, and you can make your own list at the same time. Again, you're the CEO, you're the role model. So you can make your list, you can do them side by side and then compare them and talk about them. And if your child now, so you're all doing the gratitude, but it switches the focus, gets that mindset that we've been talking about to concentrate on the positive, the good things in life that happen. And as we said, then that's what you're going to start seeing. And it makes
Mm.
a world of difference for kids.
I am always very entertaining finding patterns throughout our year. 'Cause we live
Hmm.
in a yearly cycle that repeats itself. That's kind of what gives sense to me to study the seasons because they're gonna repeat themselves. So as I look at the patterns, I always trying to see, okay, how does this apply in that yearly pattern? It's not necessarily I'm trying to fit it on a season or anything, but there are obvious seasons when being grateful because there is an environment that promotes serotonin, that promotes um, oxytocin because we have more relationships. There's more people out there, an environment that promotes a little bit more of adrenaline and exciting, and people tend to enjoy that we are connecting to the outdoors and promotes serotonin and dopamine and reduces cortisol that we get to ground. I'm describing the summer if you haven't noticed, right?
Yeah.
There is a little easier way in that season to be grateful, to acknowledge the beauty in life, but now you compare that to other seasons where I notice you have to be a little more conscious and find them. Like, it's not that they don't exist, you just have to have the right perspective on how to look for them, and you're going to find them just as many. So I don't know if you have come up to that in your work, that you see that there is a seasonal trend that happens
Mhm.
throughout the year, and I would love to hear about it.
Well, the biggest thing, as far as gratitude and in the different seasons, you start small. So the summer, it's easy. Like you said, it's easier in the summer. The sun's shining. You can get outside. You're playing this. You've got the vacation at the beach. That's easier. And then in your winter seasons, you're inside. It's not so much. But then that's when you start with the little thing. We have a roof over our head. We have heat. We have a car that runs and can get through the snow. We have winter coats. You have boots. Those kind of, you start small and then you start again because you're reshifting your focus. Then you're going to see the bigger things. And then the cloudy, gloomy of the winter season almost brightens up like the sun. And that's what I encourage parents to start with.
Yeah, so it's interesting that every single little thing that you mentioned, we didn't have, or at least took for granted 150 years ago. Like every single little thing that you mentioned is something new that we now take for granted, at least in the US. It's not really
Mhm.
taken for granted all over the world. And sure, people have houses 150 years ago, but not everybody. And not the condition and the comfort that we now have. And we've been taking stuff for granted. And I think that's where now there is an expectation of like, life is always on, it's always exciting, it's always going, going, going. And some people sometimes don't get that on certain seasons.
Mhm.
And then that mindset, again, it all kind of starts with an expectation. So, what a better expectation than to be kind no matter what the season is, to be grateful no matter what the season is, to always be looking for ways to become aware no matter what the season is. But then what I always bring to the equation is being seasonally minded, meaning being aware of your environment is the beginning of everything that we're talking about. Kindness starts kind of within you as a choice, but it will be
Mhm.
manifested through the environment, through a feeling, and then your choices. So being aware that the seasons will change that environment so that we can be aware of, okay, this is kind of how I feel this season, but then I can choose to behave this way season after season. And it's going to look a little different. The acts of kindness will be different. The list just goes on and on. So having a seasonal mindset, I just wonder how that can be transformative for somebody in the scenario of, hey, if you're going to be kind, it's going to be a little different season after season.
Mhm.
Actually, that's what makes it exciting, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And it is, and it's just whatever environment you're in, you just adjust a little bit. And it again, it's not hard. And if you have to go back and start with that smile and hello, that's a great place to start. But then, like tell parents, I said, bring in other people. If you've got the soccer team, do a sock drive for the homeless. You know, do a non-perishable food drive for the food banks. You just shift the seasons, just like the different sports for different seasons, whether it be soccer, volleyball, whatever you have, just
Teresa, can
pick
you
a
tell me a
drive.
little more about your book? Also, I want to let everybody know we'll have it on the description so you can find it. So don't worry about where to find it. We're gonna put it in the description. Go down and check it out. But I want to know, what can somebody expect and get out of your book? Like, how they can see their life transform? And I know that we have touched in many things, but I'm sure we haven't touched on everything.
We haven't touched on everything, but that's okay. It's a process and it's a quick read for busy parents. I intentionally made it that way, but it just starts, you build that foundation, make it as natural as breathing. Then you go into bringing in the different groups, your women's ministry groups, you know, the chess club, whatever it is to help with your community. So now you've
Mm.
built a pretty solid foundation. So then it goes into being kind in those awkward, sticky situations. The road rage situation I talked about, the restaurant situation, how kids, when they're confronted, how they can change how they respond by using their words and compliments. And it just gives you some other conflict management ideas, responding kindly.
Okay, guys. So the book is going to be on the description. And also, if you want to contact Teresa directly, we're going to be tagging her social media links on the description below. Teresa, is there anything you want to let the audience know, that a way or a place that they can go to experience the Kindness Project, to get in contact with you? We're going to have everything on the description down below.
Yeah, I do want to offer to your audience, I have 75 random acts of kindness, and it's a list going from, like I said, the smile and the hello, and I think number 75 is being kind to the planet where you're planting trees. So it's just a graduated scale, and you can sit down with your families and choose which ones you want to do. But I offer that
So
free for your audience.
thank you so much, guys. Take the advantage of that. It's gonna be on the link down below. Now, you just remind me of something that I experienced about 6 months ago, and I completely forgot that I really wanted to bring up. And is that I'm from Omaha. Well, I'm originally from Venezuela, but I live in Omaha. And I have a few kids under 6. So through a friend that runs the Happiness Project. So there is a
Oh,
worldwide day event that is the Happiness Day. And he talks about happiness from many different areas. And it's a very engaging project. So I want to put that in the link down below too, so that you guys can become aware when next year is happening. It happens in Omaha and Lincoln, and there is many events. So what I found super interesting is that the city creates a play, and it's super interesting because I have nothing to do with it, but the play starts in the winter, and the kids becoming aware that the winter blues are going around. And they try to solve the issue of the winter blues and moodiness and reactivity by acts of kindness. The whole play is a play on acts of kindness. And again, activating the community, small group of kids, and essentially, it's like a secret service that is going on out there. So I know that actually this is a larger project that is international now, and it's originally from Omaha, but it's in many cities around the US that put the play. And then what follows is that in all, not all of them, but most of the public schools will have, so the kids are encouraged to leave notes with kindness into them and spread them around, and basically do acts of kindness, commit to a certain amount of acts of kindness, and then at the end they kind of get together, they read them, and it's just like this thing about just being aware about being kind. So I just wanted to highlight that because it can happen, and it's happening, and it's just the awareness that kindness is one of the most efficient ways to change your environment. It truly is. Like, from gratitude to kindness, everything changes. The way that you look at your environment will change. You will attract more kindness. You become more grateful. And it's all within reach. So it is happening all around us. And our invitation is for you to take part of it. So thank you so much, Teresa. I want to let you with the opportunity of saying one thing that you think that will change the audience perception. I think that the whole episode already did. But if you are able to leave them with one thing, what would that be?
The thing I would leave them with is never know what anybody's going through. Personal pain is as unique as a fingerprint. So always, always be kind.
All right. Thank you so much, Teresa. I hope you guys enjoy. Check the link down below. We'll have all the information about how you can get in touch with Teresa, how you can go and purchase her book. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.